Hello, let's talk about changes. Welcome to the Tainted Tavern.
Welcome to the Tainted Tavern. Come sit inside with me. We'll talk about our musings and devices we've been using. So come into the Tainted Tavern.
You know, the other day I was watching an episode of Jack Hargreaves' Open Country on Rewind TV, and I've got to thank a viewer of this channel for letting me know about that, because I recently did a video where I talked about the book I was reading, Jack Hargreaves' Country, which was all about Jack Hargreaves, and this commenter commented on that video, that particular video, Within These Smoke Rings Runs a Quiet Rebellion, and he commented telling me that Jack Hargreaves, you could actually watch episodes now on Rewind TV, and I wanted to thank him for that personally on camera, because I wasn't aware of that, and I did watch the odd episode on YouTube, but seeing the full episodes broadcast on television is great, so I want to thank him for that. So I wrote his name down just so I wouldn't forget, and that commenter was Will Thacker 6379. So thank you so very much for that, Will. Really appreciate it. You can watch, as Will pointed out, you can watch Jack Hargreaves' Open Country. I think it's on every day, Monday to Friday, not on weekends, 4:30 on Rewind TV. You can get Rewind TV on Freeview, or I watch it on FreeSat, so it's available on FreeSat as well. Right, why talking about that? Now, I was watching this episode of Open Country. I'm just drinking a White and Mackay Scotch and smoking some Virginia Flake in the pipe. So I was watching this episode of Open Country, and they were catching rabbits with a net, using a dog and nets. And then they were killing the rabbits on screen, the way we used to do it back in the day. It was humanely, or at least what would have been considered humanely back then. But I was really squeamish, and I found it a bit of a disturbing thing to watch, which amazed me really, because I grew up in an hunting family. I mean, I was shooting shotguns when I was out shooting with my uncle. Out shooting, I shot a shotgun at about 12 years of age. It seems crazy now to look back at it, but I've hunted rabbits. I've done a lot of fishing in my time. We've even went one day hunting wild ducks. So I was brought up in that environment. You know, you'd capture a rabbit, you'd shoot a rabbit out hunting, you'd bring that rabbit home, it went on the dinner table. That's how it was back then. It was normalized. But I don't think I could do it now. Although I am debating taking back up fishing, and I'm looking at buying a beach caster. I want to take up sea fishing. I used to love fishing when I was younger. So perhaps there'll be some Tainted Tavern videos related around my fishing adventures. But it just made me realize how much we've changed, because back in the day when I was growing up, it was such a different world. You know, as I say, I grew up in an hunting family. But besides all that, as schoolboys, we used to do a thing, and it horrifies me to think of it now, but we used to go bird nesting. Everyone did it. It was normalized. It was made illegal in the early 80s, I believe, and rightfully so. And looking back on it, I think, it was a terrible thing to have done. But it was normal. Everyone did it. You could even get the book, the Observer Book of Birds' Eggs, which helped you build up your collection. So what you do, you'd go looking for bird nests, you'd find a nest, and you usually should only take one egg. That was the unspoken rule back then, but even then, that was wrong. But a lot of people did take a lot of eggs, which ruined an ool clutch then. So the poor birds didn't get any young that year. It was horrendous. But anyway, it was normalised. It's what we used to do. So you'd get an egg, a blackbird, for instance. I haven't got a blackbird. You take that egg home, you'd put a pin through the top and the bottom of the egg, you'd blow the contents of the egg out, then you'd put it in a display case. And that was such a popular pastime back in the day. And thankfully that's gone by and by now, but that was a pastime. And another thing we used to do a lot when we were kids, we called it mitching off school, which was skipping school basically. I once went 6 months, I think I've told this story before, with not turning up for school. We'd do it, but I got into the habit, and I can always remember one summer I was the summer that I discovered the Mark Twain book, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, which remains to this day my favourite book ever. I read it at least once a year. I've read this book umpteen times over the year. I love the book. But I can remember one year, because I had a lot of friends. I wasn't exactly a loner, but I was always comfortable with my own company. I can remember skipping school once for quite a few weeks on the run during the summer, going down the woods, the local woods. And I sat up a tree most of the day reading my book, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, and in my head I was Huckleberry Finn, getting up to his adventures. Huckleberry Finn had the Mississippi. I had the Oguvach, which admittedly is not the same thing, but it's easier to spell. Well, if you're Welsh it is anyway. But I always identified somewhat with that Huckleberry Finn, that rebellion type character. And we used to do it. We'd bunk off school. We'd have what we thought was adventures. There were times when me and my friends would camp out in the local woods. Our parents thought we had a tent. This would have been sometime in the 1970s. Our parents thought we had a tent, but we didn't. We were camping out rough. And no one batted an eyelid. That's what we used to do. That's what kids used to do all over, So we'd camp out rough. Then we'd go into the local farmer's orchard and scrump his apples. And we'd wake up usually on a damp ground, because the dew would have settled about 5 o'clock in the morning. And I can still remember how cold you was, but they were great times, and how the world has changed. And as I say, I did identify somewhat with the character of Huckleberry Finn, but it's just amazed me how things have changed now, how different the world is, and children these days. Thankfully, bird nesting's not a thing anymore, but I think children do miss out on appreciation of the country these days. There's not enough time spent in the country. I mean, school holidays, we'd be swept out in the morning with the sweeping brush and wouldn't come home until it started getting dark. You make sure you're home when the street lights come on. That's what my mother would say. They were such great times, and sadly they're all gone now. But it did give me an appreciation for the country, which I still have, and I do a lot of country walks. And as I say, maybe there's a psychological thing in the fact that years ago I did used to go on dinner, I did used to shoot rabbits, I did used to trap rabbits, I've shot pheasants. We've done all that back in the day, and perhaps that's what makes me so aware now of the environment. I mean, when I moved into this house 5 years ago, the first thing I did out the back was construct a wildlife garden. I took away all the lawns, all the neat manicured lawns, and I turned it into a wildlife garden. The environment means such a lot to me. I regularly donate money to rewilding organisations, to rewilding charities. I walk the mountains a lot. I am a country person at heart. I love the country, and still at heart I'm that Huckleberry Finn rebel deep down, I mean, they've got a lot in common with Huckleberry Finn. We both enjoy a good bowl of pipe tobacco, although Huckleberry Finn used to make his pipe sort of an old corn cob and a tube. That's another thing we did back in the day. I remember finding a pipe in my father's drawer, because my father wasn't really a pipe smoker, although everyone smoked back in the day. But he did try it once and he didn't get on with it. And I remember stealing his pipe, and we had no tobacco to try, me and my friends. So what we did, we got some tea bags from the house. We stole a couple of tea bags and we emptied the dry tea leaves into the pipe. It was absolutely horrendous. Another thing I remember, there was a comic I used to read called Battle Picture Weekly, and it had a character in it called Major Easy, and he always had this dirty old cigar hanging out to the corner of his mouth. And I remember at Christmas time there were always cigars in my house, because my father always had a pack of cigars at Christmas. He didn't really smoke cigars. He doesn't smoke at all now, thankfully, but back in the day he was a roll-up cigarette man. But at Christmas he'd have a box of cigars, and I can remember stealing one of them and going down the woods, and in my imagination I was Major Easy. And I can remember lighting up that cigar and almost coughing my guts up. I'll tell you a true story now. As I say, I was a bit of a swine. I'd steal cigarettes, I'd steal sweets. My grandmother had a Welsh dresser in the living room, and in the top drawer she always had her sweets. There were mints, Loss in Damp mints were a well-known one back there, chewing gums and things. And I'd I didn't like the Lossendant mints. They weren't to my taste back in the day. The Murray mints, I could put up with the Murray mints, but what I really liked was her chewing gums. She used to buy these little packs of PK chewing gums, and I used to steal them quite regularly. And my grandfather cornered me one day and said, "Have you been stealing your grand's chewing gums?" And I said, no, I haven't had them, I think he knew I had, because what he done next, looking back now, is mental. But what he did, you could get laxative chewing gums, which were almost looked identical to the PK chewing gums I used to. My penchant was for stealing. So he opened up, he emptied a pack of PK chewing gums and put some laxatives in there. Each little pouch of these chewing gums would have about 5 chewing gums in it, so he must have put 5 laxatives in it, and he put them back in the cupboard. It was the last time I ever stole them. I can remember watching Starsky and Hutch. That's how clear the memory is in my mind. We were watching Starsky and Hutch, all of a sudden I felt a rumbling in my stomach, and I exploded. And I remember my mother playing, "You could have killed him, And my grandfather said, "He shouldn't steal, I'll bloody teach him." Such good memories. But anyway, as I say now, that's so long ago. It was long ago and it was far away, and it was so much better as it is today, as the song goes. But deep down, I think at heart I'm still a 60-year-old Huck Finn. All the best, thanks for watching, cheers. Please give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, tell me about your own childhood memories, and if you haven't done so already, then please subscribe. Thanks for watching the Tainted Tavern.
Please come back soon.